It's funny you say that because the producers told me, because I wanted to put in "I'm a Believer," and they said, "You sure you want to use 'I'm a Believer? Don't you think that people are going to be more like they're going to think more about the Monkees than they would Neil Diamond?" And I said, "Oh, fellas, let me just tell you this." And I turned to some young person and I was like, "Hey, you know that song 'I'm a Believer'?" And then she was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Yeah, where do you know it from?" And she's like, "Oh, Shrek."
Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. In this episode, two down-on-their-luck performers form a successful tribute band in director Craig Brewer's musical drama, Song Sung Blue. Based on a true story, the film follows Mike and Claire Sardina, a Milwaukee couple who form the Neil Diamond tribute act Lightning and Thunder. Riding the highs and lows of success, the couple prove it's never too late to find love and follow your dreams. In addition to Song Sung Blue, Brewer's other directorial credits include the feature films Coming to America, Dolomite Is My Name, Footloose, Black Snake Moan, and Hustle and Flow, and episodes of the series Empire, Terriers, and The Shield. Following a screening of the film at the DGA Theater in Los Angeles, Brewer spoke with director Taylor Hackford about filming Song Sung Blue. Listen on for their spoiler-filled conversation.
Craig, I love this. It's the second time I've seen it. I saw it, unfortunately, I apologize in a link because I like to see things in advance. And I sat through this screening tonight. It's obviously so much better on the big screen, but it's got so much heart and joy. And that's a very unusual situation to kind of go for it. And when I say joy, it's there. Just for the audience, give us a little bit of the source. How long you've been working on it and why?
Well, I try to go to a lot of film festivals that aren't like the biggies. And one of them was a film festival where I live in Memphis, Tennessee, called Indie Memphis. And I always have this soft spot in my heart for films that just never really got any sort of distribution, like my first film. And there's so many, so especially in the documentary realm, a lot of people make their own docs and they never get picked up by a distributor. They never get streamed. And I remember seeing the description for Song Sung Blue and seeing it. There was probably about like 4 or 5 people in the theater. And I've been in those situations too, where you go to a festival and there's 5 people in the audience and 2 of them are the program directors because they want you to feel better. And, but I think I went into it thinking that it was just going to be kind of like a fun little Neil Diamond romp, who I loved his music, but then the story began to take off with this couple, and it just seemed like everything was being thrown at them. Like they already didn't have much to begin with, and then not just 1 car but 2 car crashes, and trying to hold their family together. And so that was in 2009. And the only way that I could really watch the movie is you emailed the director. He burned you a DVD. He mailed it to you. And I would just kind of over the years show it to friends. But it wasn't really until John Davis and John Fox, who we had produced Dolomite Is My Name together, and they were wondering what I wanted to do next. And I really felt like it was time to make it. And I knew it was going to be a hard sell. I mean, yeah, I'm sure if you really knew what the movie was about when you came in, it's like, oh yeah, she loses her leg, he dies at the end. It's not necessarily a 4-quadrant summer buddy movie or something like that every studio would love to have. And so, we went around town and everybody said no. And then luckily, Focus Features and Universal as well, they got it. I think it was because they had done Yesterday. And one of the execs had been to a wedding recently and saw young people singing Sweet Caroline. So they thought it was at least enough to like say, we'll develop it. But then Hugh Jackman coincidentally went in for a meeting and they asked him if he was a Neil Diamond fan. And he said, absolutely. And so he got on the phone with me and I started telling him about the project and I gave him the documentary and he said, well, I'm in before I even read the script. Oh. And so then I was off to writing the script. Yeah.
I mean, Hugh is he's a friend of mine and he's such a talented man. And, I mean, everyone knows, he did a show on Broadway and, you just don't do this. Singular guy stands on stage and he was playing songwriter. I can't remember, but I mean, my God, he just had everyone in the palm of the hands. Now, you see him as, is as the wolf character.
Yeah, Wolverine, right?
Wolverine and all of that stuff. But this is one of the most charming people ever and a wonderful actor. And you captured him so beautifully. He's so real. I mean, my compliment, and I'm going to talk about many things that you've done with this film, but it's a great working class film. It is a film. These people are not extraordinary. They're not superhuman. They're working people and they love to sing. And you've captured something that, would that the whole world could say, just find me something like I'm passionate about. I don't have to be famous. I just want to do something that pleases me and pleases other people. And you've done it here. And I'm giving Hugh a lot of kudos and he deserves it. But my God, Kate Hudson is a revelation. She was so great.
Wasn't she wonderful, y'all? Wasn't Kate like, weren't you just proud of her?
How did you know she could do that?
Well, after Hustle and Flow, Kate and I got to know each other. So this was back in like 2006 and I had been wanting to work with her. And so I've been over to her house like, 3 times with 3 different scripts that, never went for various reasons. None of it having to do with Kate. And to be honest with you, like I kind of moved on with careers and we kind of lost touch or at least had no reason to get in touch with each other. But then, there's always that one moment where like finally the studio wants this, they like the script, you have Hugh Jackman and now you've got to like start putting the other cast members together. And so you start getting the list from, studio, from casting, from producers, like these are the names that mean something right now. And Kate wasn't on the list at all. And Hugh called me and said, are you watching this CBS Sunday morning special with Kate? And I was like, no. And so I turned, I downloaded it and there's Kate crying that her son was going off to college. And I was like, wait, was it that kid that I was seeing over at her house? And I was like, oh wow, we're older, and then she said, I'm getting kind of tired of Hollywood needing to make up their mind about me. I'm going to start writing music and I'm going to just start touring and I'm going to make an album and I'm going to go into bars and venues with a band and I'm going to start playing music. And I was just looking at her and going like, oh my God, I mean, it's her. Yeah. And so I got on a Zoom with her. We sent her the script. She loved the script. We just really, it felt like the years just had evaporated between the times that we'd been together. And really, it was kind of her, me, and Hugh just kind of decided to do the movie. Like usually you're supposed to get approvals and stuff like that. But we just kind of decided right then and there we were going to like do it. And we've been really connected throughout the whole process.
Was it hard to sell her to the studio?
It wasn't, but I don't recall us asking.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. But it was, well, clearly it was such, when when 2 actors, it's like the camera loves them. It's like you say, well, this can work, but those 2 people got on screen and you got it. It's just coming off them. You don't need a fast dolly shot or hang from the ceiling by your heels. You just look and they understood these people. I mean, I fell in love with them as they fell in love with each other. And I think that the great thing about what you did, she's the spark plug. I mean, he's great.
Yeah.
He's really terrific. Disturbed, all those things. And she just has such power and she just, like she said, I just want to sing.
Yeah.
And so she is responsible for that. And, when he says, I was thinking, I'm going to be lightning and thunder. And she goes, so great. She goes, and I'd be thunder? And then she kisses him, and you're like, wow, what a moment. What a moment to break. So anyway, you can tell that I love the film. But tell me about Neil Diamond. You obviously needed him because he controls all the music.
Yeah, well, let me go back just even to the story that Greg Coase, the director of the documentary, told me about, is that the movie was about to premiere at a film festival, his documentary, and then he got served with a cease and desist letter from the publishing house that was handling Neil Diamond's music. And so they were, I mean, it was like the day of, really. And Eddie Vedder found out about that, and Eddie called up Neil and said, you've got to just look at this documentary right now, and you got to let them use the music. And Neil Diamond watched the movie and loved it. And actually, there's a beautiful picture in the end of the documentary of Neil Diamond holding Claire, and because she finally got to meet him. Always had a ticket at all of his shows when he came into town. So when luckily John Davis, the producer of the movie, his mother was friends with Neil Diamond and Katie Diamond, his wife. And when we went to them, because, if Neil wasn't in for it, there was nothing. No. I mean, that's kind of, you can't do it. And so they loved the idea of doing a movie that way, because then it doesn't have the burden of like a biopic about Neil. And, I know the Broadway show Beautiful Noise has been doing good, but they love the idea that it was about fans, that it was about, the people that they loved in the documentary. And especially like what you said about just the working class element of it. That's definitely what I responded to.
It's interesting. I know Neil. He's a very smart guy and a wonderful songwriter. Interesting when they cut to the Monkees song. And, he's been a songwriter forever. He wrote those things before you knew who Neil Diamond was.
It's funny you say that, because the producers told me, because I wanted to put in I'm a Believer. And they said, are you sure you want to use I'm a Believer? Don't you think that people are going to be more like, they're going to think more about the Monkees than they would Neil Diamond? And I said, oh, fellas, let me just tell you this. And I turned to some young person and I was like, hey, you know that song I'm a Believer? And then she was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, where do you know it from? And she's like, oh, Shrek. The whole generation, the younger generation, knows it from like, Donkey and right. Shrek singing it than the Monkees. So we were rather dated ourselves with that.
I think, for Neil Diamond to say, we're doing this movie and the person who's doing the tribute is Hugh Jackman, number one, kind of nice. And number two, to be able to reuse his catalog like this, beautifully recorded, beautifully arranged, he should be laughing, all the way.
Well, what we're really touched by is that he was crying. He was very touched by the movie. He met with Kate and met with Hugh afterwards. He told Hugh, you did good, kid, and he really, both he and Kate are very, very happy with it.
Yeah, well, fantastic. I think having done a fair amount of music in my films,
yes, sir.
I look at what Craig did. He's a master at taking songs and it's, you see performance and then flow out of performance into drama, but keep the music underneath. So it's scores. It's right. It's playing all the way through, and then he comes back into the performance, and then he goes into more drama and comes back. It's a rare skill, and you do it beautifully. So I just wanted to complimenti.
Thank you.
And I noticed that Mary Venue cast the movie. Were you interested in Michael Imperioli and Jim Belushi and these people, or did she suggest it?
I try not to say it too much, but the real truth is that as I was writing the script before even Hugh Jackman was along, I was like, I'm going to cast Jim Belushi as Tom Amato, because even when I was watching the documentary, I was thinking like, okay, well, it's really got to be about this family that kind of comes together, that to make this happen. And I knew Jim Belushi already, and I was like, I really would love to cast him. But of course, Michael Imperioli was a New York actor, and he's in a band, and we really wanted him to be able to play, and it was important to Michael that he play. And then also just, here's the one thing, like Fisher Stevens straight up auditioned.
He's fabulous.
He's wonderful. And then same with Ella Anderson, the daughter.
Ella Anderson is just great.
Yeah, Rachel. I also cast King Princess as the other, as Angelina, the other daughter. And that's when I also, if you thought that Monkeys comment, dated me, it was really great to be like going into prep and putting King Princess's picture up on my wall, because she just straight up did a great audition. And then my director of photography, Amy, came in and said, "Oh, wow, are we using some of King Princess's music?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Yeah, she's like rock royalty. She's like she's like a rock star." I had no idea. And I did not know until my daughter came to set, like 1 week into shooting, that Ella Anderson, like basically her generation grew up watching Ella Anderson on this Nickelodeon show called Henry Danger. Did not know it at all. But these are just two actresses that straight up read and just did a very great job auditioning.
Wonderful. That you see them fall in love as these, especially way Ella Anderson started by saying no, and then sitting on those swings while their parents are inside doing it, just great. I noticed that in the opening. Isn't the opening, but the power montage where you see them put it together, and they're playing now in different clubs, and it's I think there was 6 costume changes.
Yeah,
I mean, you went the same song and went back and back, and of course it progressed, the progression of their relationship, and it was so effortless, but told the story. They're putting their act together.
Yeah. And what I love most about what you're talking about is that it was all in the same location. I think that's what like television really did for me. I took a break from features and I just started doing a lot of television directing, and where I think in features, like early on, I would fight for what I wanted and wouldn't think too much about like the machinations of how it all came together. Like, oh, I need 300 extras, and then they'd be like, well, we can give you 150, and then I'd fight with them about that. Whereas in television, they're like, you have 50 extras, and if you got a problem, we're gonna like get somebody else in here to direct. And so it really began to be something that when I would come to a place, I would try to work with production. And so we had one venue, and I was like, oh, that's a great stage, but what's that corner over there? And they're like, oh, it's just where like we usually put our band equipment. And I was like, well, what if we put a bunch of like we dress that up like it's a location, and then we'll go over here into this corner and that'll be a location. And so suddenly we knocked out 3 locations in one location just by turning and moving in there. And then because the real Mike Sardina would basically wear these shirts, and then he'd wear different color vests for each song. Even the clothes rack was on the stage. And so he would change. It's like, now it's time for Cracklin' Rosie, and then the gold vest would come on, and it's like time, then the red, white, and blue one would get. It's like, guess what song's coming now, everybody, America. And so we just did that and just started, moving the camera to all these different locations.
Fantastic, and also for this audience, economical. You don't have the end all be all of budgets, so you make it work. Craig mentioned Hustle and Flow. I don't know how many of you seen it, but I was a big fan. It was a fantastic piece, set in Memphis,
yes,
and really dealt with Memphis in a really wonderful way. And the actors from that film, Taryn Walsh, I knew very well, and Taraji Henson.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you robbed.
And then
you took those two, and Terrence Howard, who I love, and then you took Terrence Howard and Taraji Henson, and you created a TV show.
Well, yeah, I didn't create it, but I definitely every time I'd go through Memphis airport security, everybody in security would be like, "Man, we're watching your show, Craig." And I was like, "Well, it's not really my show." Lee Daniels and Danny Strong created it, and they're like, "Really? I thought it was like Hustle and Flow." And so finally, after about a year, they called me and said, "Do you want to start directing for us?" And I needed the work. I was like, "All right, I'll go in and start working with Taryn." But I think Now you worked with Terrence in
I
Ray as
worked
well.
with,
Yeah.
on Ray. I had Terrence, and he was fabulous. And you work with actors, and I'll tell you, I'm not. This is your night, but
No.
just
Taylor
Terrence
Hackford.
Howard
Oh,
is,
sure.
he's a movie star, and he is an actor. So when I was reading him for a role, and he was playing a role of an important collaborator, Ray Charles, early in his career. And Terrence came in and said, I love this guy. Why isn't the movie about him?
That's so him. So Terrence.
I said, well, I think Jamie Foxx would be a little upset
Right.
to throw Ray Charles aside, so it'll all
Right.
be about, but that's Terrence.
Yeah.
And at the same time, he may give you a little trouble, but it's not really trouble. He absolutely is there and did the role beautifully, and he was great to work with. And he and Jamie had known each other forever. But the point is, actors are so crucial, and he was just, fabulous in Hustle and Flow, playing a very complicated role.
I remember it's very strange because we're on the 20th anniversary of Hustle and Flow coming out, and I remember coming up to Terrence because we were doing readings of other actors, and Terrence was doing his acting. He was doing a particular performance, and I was worried about something. I went up to him and I was like, I'm worried because I think forever you've been stealing scenes, and you do it with this subtlety thing. So everybody's like playing on tilt, and you come in like really, really soft, like with a dagger, and I go, you're the lead of this movie now. You're the lead. So there's nobody to do that with. And so I think I need you to bang that drum harder in some scenes. And to see, and it was the first time I had ever confronted him on something like this before we even started shooting, and to have Terrence like looking down into my face, like I was like, you're the lead. You've got to bang that drum and have the dagger, but you can't just do dagger all the time. And he was like, I like the way you say that, man. He was like, so it fed a little bit into his idea of but I also told him, it's like, this character that you're playing is someone who's always believed he should be number one. And you've never quite been number one. Yeah. You've been the scene stealer where somebody else is number one on the call sheet.
That's the case with, it's interesting with character actors. Character actors are so great, and they know, oh God, I've got to grab this little moment because I'm only in this number of scenes. And sometimes they overdo it, but they know that's important. And then when they got to stretch out and do the whole movie, it's like, and someone like Terrence, who is a fabulous actor, it's great. It's just a great.
If you don't mind, when I found out you were doing this, I was so pleased and honored. But like, I really wanted to ask you something, and you brought up the whole working class thing. I feel, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel that the movies that I really like grew up loving, like in the 80s, there was a different type of expectation as to what characters felt success was. Sometimes it's just, I want to fly jets.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes it's just, I'm going to graduate this program. Sometimes it's, I'm going to put on a dance at this high school. Sometimes it's, I'm going to make a dress like in, Pretty in Pink, and I'm going to go to the prom by myself. But these days, it seems like that people don't think that, or I don't know if people don't think it's enough, but the industry thinks that it's got to be bigger. It's got to be something else. But I think that when I was growing up watching these movies, that they felt very human. They felt, and I think that the theme that we have in the movie is kind of along those lines, that you can actually just be a band in your community, and actually have like an amazing finale or goal in your life or life in general. But you don't necessarily need millions of streams or millions of views or touring arenas. And you just have made so many films.
I only make films about working class people.
No, I know.
All my films are about working class people. That's what I was. And I was raised by a waitress alone. And I've always had the sense that America, that's what America is.
Absolutely.
But I agree with you. Things have changed a lot, and glitz has been, and someone has to be a billionaire to be a hero.
Right.
And unfortunately, that is our society today, and and right down to the president of the United States. But I think that's why I love the film so much. Those two people were thrilled to be able to go out in those bars
Right.
and entertain people. And they could sing. They loved singing. They knew they were good, and they touched the people that were in those bars. And that was great. And they said, they're going to make it to Vegas. But even then they'd be playing the lounges. They wouldn't be playing
Absolutely.
the showrooms. So the reality is that I don't know. I hope this film goes through and the audience gets in to see it, because it's, it delivers. Now, an interesting thing, I talked to Craig, the second time I saw it tonight, I was out there at the point where the car crash happens. I set my stopwatch, and it was 30 minutes of pain. And it's a strange thing because you as I said at the beginning, there's joy in this film, such fabulous joy. At the beginning, they meet, and who are they? Who cares? That's what the general public is. Who cares? But they cared. They found each other, and then they created something wonderful. And all those scenes, and there's a fantastic momentum that happens from a filmmaker's point of view. The momentum was going, and I heard the people in the theater night laughing, and it's emotional. It was great. And then, bang, that car comes and hits her, and all of a sudden, it has to stop. And there wasn't any joy. There couldn't be. How could there be?
Right.
For 30 minutes, that's hard, because you got that momentum, and then 30 minutes of pain, and then you pull them out, and in a way, it earns it. When she's on that porch laughing, the absurdity of a second car crash, which was real, wasn't it?
Which happened. Isn't that strange? Same spot.
Yeah. But, that's by the way, let's face it, if you wrote that and said, oh, well, we're doing it, they go, oh, give me a break.
I wrote it. I knew it happened. I was like, they're gonna, grill me on this, because they're not going to believe that it happened. I would have to say that was the biggest worry going into the project, is that I remember telling everybody, it's like, listen, I need to keep them in this 30 minutes of pain, as you put it. That the title card at the beginning of the movie says based on a true love story. And I'm doing a little play on the words, like based on a true story, just let everybody know it's a true story. But for me, it has a different meaning. For me, it's like it's a true love story. You got to put the on true, which I feel is just different for a love story for people in their 40s and 50s, as opposed to young people and their love story. You get in that relationship and it's wonderful. I mean, everybody has that 3-month honeymoon where it's just wonderful, and then suddenly, like, life happens. And real tragedy or sickness or something with children going wrong. And that's really where love is tested. That's really where it's true. And that's where I really wanted to, I needed to just somehow, if I could just get everybody in love with them, I knew that they would need to see if they could get through that time.
It's, I just want to say, and here we are in our theater, but to talk about the style, you did so many economical but stylish, wonderful things. When she's in bed and she sees the smoke outside and she goes to that, we know she's fucked up in terms of a drug, on her drugs and her pain meds and so forth. But that wonderful moment of reaching out to the door, and all of a sudden she's pulling open the tinsels, and she's on stage and she's singing Patsy Cline. And then he's out in the audience saying, you can't be up here. This isn't your show. And she's fighting it. And all of a sudden they're on the front lawn. It's beautiful. It's seamless. And at the same time, we get it. We didn't know at the beginning she was in a fantasy, although the smoke kind of gives that. But all of a sudden, she's out on the front lawn crawling on the grass, and her kids are horrified, and he's trying to get a hold of her. I mean, that's a transition. And it's a dramatic transition. It's also cinematic, really. And it's all the way through. You do those wonderful cuts where, boom, something happens, and all of a sudden, in a hard cut, you're in another scene.
Yeah.
And that's what filmmaking is about.
Thank you. I was very concerned about the first one because when I was talking to the real Claire Sardina, and she was telling me that there was, hallucinations, there was moments where the whole day would be missing, like she just wouldn't know what happened. And so I was thinking, like, how do you really show like days being missing? And I was very nervous about that one cut where it's daylight. There's a knock at the door. She's like, "Give me another minute," and then she opens the door and it's night. Even on set. Like people are going like, I don't quite understand how this is.
Worked beautifully.
I'm glad it did because I was nervous about it. I really was.
It really did. I think, and I think the other thing is like coming back, I don't think I've ever appreciated, and I've spent a lot of time in music in my life. I never appreciated Neil Diamond this much.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I've never been a huge Neil Diamond fan, although I know him and I know he's a great artist. But God, it really lifted the audience, and the way you put the slow songs when they fit, the celebrations when they happened. I love that the owner of the Thai restaurant, celebrating his wife's birthday. She's dead. And the two of them were there. And that's what's so great about Hugh. He took it seriously. You knew that was his friend. And they were together singing a Neil Diamond song. It was fabulous.
Can I tell you just real quick about that moment? That's the song I Am, I Said. And I don't know if anybody here knows the story behind the song I Am, I Said. Neil Diamond came out to L.A. from New York to audition for Lenny, the Dustin the Bob Fosse movie. And he botched the audition. It didn't go well. And he went back to his apartment.
To play Lenny?
To play Lenny.
And he lost it to Dustin Hoffman.
He did. And he went back to the apartment he was staying in, and he began to really have like a life crisis. And he was writing those lyrics, that I'm New York City born and raised, but now I'm lost between two shores. LA's fine, but it ain't home. New York's home, but it ain't mine no more. And he was really wrestling with what he should be. And I remember reading that story years after I heard that song, and I felt that in my own way. And I thought, wow, it's so wild, some of these stories that triggers this kind of songwriting from such a great songwriter.
I mean, there's Billy Joel has a song "Goodbye to Hollywood," and he'd left New York. He came to L.A. He was playing in a piano bar on Wilshire by the Ambassador, and just completely and nobody knew him. Nobody knew it. And he talked to me about driving out of L.A. up the hill in San Bernardino, and this song came to him. But listen, if you're a songwriter, and I worship songwriters, this is what they do. They capture moments. And I think you have captured a beautiful moment here. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. It's a big deal for me. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. The Director's Cut is available wherever you listen to podcasts. And please share, subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America